always in the background dancing, loving. I love this intro music, and I can't wait until Miss BJ Martin makes our BTG intro, because she is working hard to put some videos for us together and all that good stuff, so that we will have a BTG introduction. So anyway, without further ado, you all know why we're here. This is BTG, Bridging the Gap, strategizing for student success. My name is Marissa Bludorn. I am the founder and CEO and editor-in-chief of BTG Magazine. I have with me to my left or right, Coach Ray, who is one of our senior contributing writers for the BTG Magazine, and he's a contributing writer for the Own It Magazine. We have associate editor-in-chief of BTG, which is Dr. P, here in the house. And we are in the month of March, and that is celebrating women, or let's say girls too. So we are celebrating females. And so I'm excited because I can remember starting off with my kids. I have daughters. I don't have any guys or no boys. I don't even have my granddaughter girl. So just all women. And so I remember when my girls were younger, putting them into some kind of organization that helped them with etiquette and, how to behave and to do crafts and touch and tap into their creativity or what they were really drawn to. And those two organizations were Girl Scouts. I remember being a Girl Scout as a little girl. But when my daughters came along to put them into an organization, it was Christian based, and that's Pioneer Girls. And so I did a lot of work doing some leadership work with the Pioneer Girls. And I just wanted to bring some light to them and all that they do in regards to awarding the young girls and some of the activities they do, teaching them the importance about giving back in community. And so that is what I wanted to bring to the table in regards to just celebrating women who volunteer. And we don't talk about the importance of volunteering. I know it was never a conversation in my community in regards to the importance of giving back in community. And just, I can remember working with the young ladies, the little girls, because they're little girls and pioneers. But I can remember how they felt. Coach Lana is in the house. Londa, we got to bring you center stage so you can be here and own it with us. And so we're talking about celebrating the women, but talking about really volunteering and getting involved with our young girls is so important in making an impact. Teaching them about self-worth, teaching them about self-value and all that other good stuff. And so, like I said, I wanted to just do a shout out to the Girl Scouts, a shout out to Pioneer Girls and the Pioneer Girl leadership. And then I'm going to segue and I'm going to pass over the reins to Coach Ray. So I set the tone for us to talk about the women and leadership and making sure we're on the female pathway. And now we're going to hand it over to a man, right, who's going to continue to lead it. And I'm going to say to you guys, good night. Have a great show. I know you're going to do an amazing job with our audience and everything else. Love you so much. I thank you guys for, being a fabulous team. And I'll see you later. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great show.
Yeah.
All right. So me being the only gentleman on the on the call, or on the show, let me start it off by saying I'm appreciative of the ladies that are on this episode and in general, just because the intricate part that you play in the communities that you are surrounding, and then just in the lives of the people that are connected to you. So we're very appreciative of you ladies as a whole. So I want to start this off, and this question is for both of you. Give me the most influential woman ever in your life, and let's start. Let's rewind. Let's start with when you were a little kid, like young,
Okay.
and why.
So I'm going to start that by saying that's not a fair question because you cannot name one person and still go home or talk to family later on in life. How
Right.
am I right, Sister Alonda? Definitely. So, but I will
Yeah.
actually only
Yeah.
because I literally just had to write something, and I realized how much, in all seriousness, I can honestly say this: my mom, who, praise God, she still is like that for me. A lot of the words of wisdom, the things that, even they say when you're a child, up into being a teenager, up into becoming a woman, some of that stuff you're just saying, oh boy, you know.
Yeah.
But ooh, when you realize you start saying it back, especially to this generation that we have. So between I would say my mom,
Mm-hmm.
my grandmothers, and my aunts, just being those women that, number one, led me to the Lord, being very specific. And you know what? And I'm almost forgetting, and my godmother as well, who is not here anymore, as well as my both grandmothers. But just really realizing just that basics of ethics and how to conduct yourself as a young lady when you get to meet women now. Unfortunately, you really do realize sometimes that if people didn't have the foundation, they really don't know how to navigate as adult women sometimes. Well, adults. They don't. So part of, I believe, what we get to do, you two literally are coaches. I'm a I'm a teacher as well as other things, and writer and do things. I work with women's organizations on purpose because you know the story. So it's a great thing on purpose to know that your foundation came from those who raised you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coach Yolanda?
I would venture to say the same. I think that both of my great grandmothers are probably the most inspirational women because my maternal great grandmother, one being because my great grandfather never wanted her to work outside of the home, but I think she was an inspiration to me because she still found a way to pursue her purpose and her passion inside those parameters that that honored him, that honored the legacy of their family, but it also honored herself too. Like, my purpose is important, and God didn't give me this talent to just be a wife or just be a mother, and I'm appreciative of that. And my other great grandmother as well, because she was the first cosmetologist that I ever knew, so I followed in her footsteps. But also too, her and my great grandfather built a legacy. Venturing from the South, both sides, but venturing from the South, being the first homeowners, and the first people that I ever saw to really build a legacy. And not just a legacy for their own families, but they build generational wealth for other families. So I think, like, for me, that is something that I stand heavily on. And I'm appreciative of that foundation because I know when life challenges come, I'm reminded of their strength to keep persevering for myself. Because I'm planted in that soil. You know what I'm saying? So I know that no matter how tough life gets, that I have every nutrient already embodied in my ancestral DNA to make it through. So I think they inspire me for sure. And just even my paternal great grandmother, they built generational wealth. Like my grandfather, my father grew up dual family. So just showing how group economics works and how they were able to build some of the first black businesses off of there, like the first black man to own a McDonald's in Harlem lived in their home, like they were the first black people to own a brownstone in Brooklyn, New York. Just that group economics and just how rich that being from that soil and them, just being a mother of many mothers, like just that for me is important. And also why I chose to be an entrepreneur. Like, and entrepreneurship gets rough, but I'm like, I'm gonna make it because I saw them not fail. So I know that any trip up, slip up is a fail forward and not a fail behind. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. So on top of that, let's dissect the process in which the women that became intricate in your lives raised you, so to speak, like the important ones. Like let's dissect that process. So what were some of the highs, and even be real, like highs and lows of those upbringings? Because let's be real, we have to. And when I say lows, I mean the times where you didn't want to deal with what came. You know what I'm saying? Like that discipline had to come. So what were the highs and lows of your upbringing?
You want to go, Dr. Nat?
Wow, that's good because it makes me think about the fact of actually quietly realizing at times when, you know, especially and I can think I can say this, black women especially, they just they keep it moving. If things get hard, they keep moving and they know how to support each other and they know how to go to each other if they need that extra help. So when you're talking about maybe being single women, raising children, as well as even trying to just keep their households together, not maybe even sometimes having the best spouse. I mean, I realized that part of that for me was being pretty perceptive, even as a child, knowing there were things that you could speak on, but things that you could not speak on as well. So thank God I realized that so I wouldn't get in too much trouble. But actually, I say that to say having women also on the flip side that they were the type that said, let's talk about it. They did tell you about different things, and they really tried their best to give you wisdom that you were going to be able to use later on in life. So they let you see some of the hard stuff. You were able to perceive it, and then at the same time, they turn around and talk to you about it so that you could learn from it eventually. I actually tell a story that one of my grandmothers, she was very specific. I would always hear her say, and it's Southerners, don't nobody know but me. And I actually remember asking her by the time I probably got to be an older teenager, why do you always say that? And she said to me, you'll understand one day. So guess what? It didn't take that long to understand by the time you got to be a female, and a woman. So, just some things that you bear and they do it with grace and they do it in a way in excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And they show you how to, put your head up high. Don't let them see you sweat. If you have to go home and cry, you cry and you go back the next day and you keep on fighting. So I think it's being able to just to see the tears as well as the joy and the laughter.
Hmm. Miss Coach Yolanda.
Yeah, I would say the same. My mom picked up her life. We picked up and we moved from a city in a state where our safety net was our family into uncharted territories where we didn't know anyone. And my mom went back to pursue her passion. And so I think those things were highs, just being able to see my mom, like you said, go through a failed marriage, raise her 3 kids, raise 2 of somebody else's, take it all on her shoulder. But then it also, too, the downfall to that is when you have to structure your mind to be so strong to persevere, having that when is it okay to show emotion, you know what I'm saying? When is it okay to be gentle, to be nurturing, and you know, present even, because I feel like, a lot of sacrifices have to be made when you're pursuing that to have a better life overall, but a lot of things get sacrificed during the journey, right? And how do you go back and redeem that time, or course correct some of those things, or do you just keep that hard demeanor of it's all gonna work out in the end? You know what I mean? Like those are the highs and the lows of being a strong black woman and having to persevere to, show your children like, hey, you can go back and you can have it all, even no matter what life throws at you. And some things are just gonna fall by the wayside. But what things is it okay to say, ouch, that kind of hurt and we gotta repair? Or you just gonna be like, the next generation to get it. You know what I'm saying? And maybe not this one.
Okay, so what are we? There's a gap in how society moved in the last generation. And I say that because working closely with teenagers and especially young ladies, I'm seeing that there's a huge gap in the upbringing of how young ladies operate nowadays. What do you attribute that to?
I
You,
think.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're fine.
I think that there is a generation of parents right now, myself included. I'm a part of that generation, where we're trying to right what we felt like was wrong with us. So we have cut a lot of things that actually did work because we weren't allowed to have those conversations of the why. And so now we're giving our kids the space of the why, but we also never went back to get the why for ourselves. So we're making our own interpretations and cutting some things that actually built character in us. And sometimes we're kind of handicapping our kids with all of these, let's sit around and have our feelings, and it's okay to kind of like, we want to break all these generational curses and stuff. But I'm for that. I'm pro break the generational trauma and clean up the generational junk. But with that has to have conversation and understanding, so you can understand what part of the recipe you need to dissect and substitute with what didn't work for us, as opposed to what still needs to be there for this generation.
Mm-hmm.
So true. So true. And part of that too, I think about the fact that you can honestly say, you know, even our generation, these kids are seeing some things that we probably never even imagined. And I believe even if we talk to our elders, there wasn't even that much of a shift between them and us. So they kind of knew, there was still some old, what we call old school ways.
Mm-hmm.
What we have now, though, is just so different.
Mm,
There's there that what it is too. They are actually the leaders in knowing so much because of the technology. Um, they've made this generation, things are obsolete. At least we still did kind of have some things to flow back on. A house phone. You're talking to like forever. Just the fact that they don't even have to write anymore. I I could not believe, and I'm glad I don't teach young kids because I probably would get in trouble all the time. I couldn't believe that they're not teaching cursive. That is just part of that's unimaginable to me. So I speak that to say, again, like you're saying, Coach Alonda, we are letting them do also some things that, because maybe we didn't like how some things were done. But, just as I was saying, but things have to be explained to them.
mm-hmm.
Can't let them go with the culture. Our parents didn't let us go with the culture.
Right.
They, this is my house and this is what we're going to do. And I think you kind of alluded to when you said we're the generation, it was, don't do as I do
Say,
as I
yeah,
say.
say, not as I do. Yeah.
Right. And also, why do I have to do that? Because I said so.
Right.
Those were the two rules. So are some of us, and as you speak on that, you already know there you and others, coach, great parents. You're
Right.
telling your kids yes, no, but you're talking about now if, and I'm just using this example because there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're raising kids and you're trying to be an influencer and trying to be their friend and you're trying to do this, and not be their parent, this world, they need a parent to deal with this world and they need to be taught so that they can therefore become the people that then teach others, the next generation.
Right.
And
We have
so,
to do that.
in saying that and
Mhm.
understanding that part, the looking at the current generation and the strength of a lot of women who have been caught in the middle,
Mhm.
so to speak. You're kind of in the range of raising kids, and I would speak for my wife, for example, like she was in the middle of like raising her kid and taking care of her father, right? How do you, as a woman, in those moments, you find the strength to balance and still be as super as most women can be?
Mm, that's yeah, that's great because the elders, I would almost say, let's, maybe we would need to still ask some of our elders that in a
Yeah.
way. I
I
mean,
think that yeah, I think that the thing is, I think that we need to give black women grace to not have to feel like we got to wear this cape all the time. I feel
Ooh.
like there are I always say for me, I'm unconventional and unapologetic about it. So a lot of times I know people think like, oh, her parenting is crazy. It's very definitely new age. But even with my elders, like my grandmother is probably one of my best friends, but I stand in the content of my convictions. Like I stand on what I believe in and I don't let anybody shame me um,
mhm,
to feel like I had to do what they did or make me feel like my new way is wrong. And so I'm actually a younger person. I'm so glad that you asked this question. I'm a younger person with older parents. So
Mm-hmm.
me and my cousin just had this talk like we are having to care for our parents because we kind of were like change of life kids, right? So we are ahead of our generation basically and having to care for our parents. Like my father is like 72 years old. You know what I mean? So and I'm only going to be 39 on Saturday. Like that's rare. So I have to have these conversations with my kids too. Like at a season of our life is going to look different because I'm going to have to make decisions now because I'm going to have to, I tell my kids this like, I'm going to have to take care of grandpa or I'm going to have to do certain things because I'm doing certain things that a typical 39-year-old wouldn't have to do now. And so they understand that. And I'm like, and a part of that and a part of staying super is we have to go back and embrace the family mentality and now family looks like everybody has a role that they have to play. And in order for me, I tell people I'm only super because I'm raising my kids to be super, because I am not as super without them being on board. My kids are my staff, they're my team. And I think what is different about our generation of parenting is I allow myself to be vulnerable to my children, where I feel like our parents, they felt like it's like show no weakness because they'll overtake you. Where I'm
mhm,
like, listen, I apologize. I tell my kids I may not know everything all the time. And when I'm wrong and I'm reverting back to some of that generational stuff, I have conversations with them. And but I also let them know I'm very and because I'm vulnerable to them, it doesn't mean that I've shifted my authority. I'm still very much in control. They still
mhm,
know
Well,
that I'm the parent.
there's the balance area of it, and which is what we're discussing is we're looking at from. I think what a lot of them miss these days is they don't realize the balance beam can stay in the middle. You feel what I'm saying? Like the pendulum can stay in the middle. So they're trying to. It's one of the two extremes. I'm gonna be super hard, difficult, unruly, rude, and disrespectful to my kid, or I'm the friend. There
Yeah.
has to be that level of balance, and I think there was in my upbringing. My mom, for the sake of the argument, I tell people all the time she's one of the like toughest people I've ever met in my life.
mhm,
Dealing with her medical issues and things like that. Not always the most loving, being very honest. Not always the most nurturing. Not always the most caring. Like there were some instances where it was like, you seek that nurturing from someone else, but if you need that tough love, it was there. Um, so the balance wasn't what I needed. So in those areas, it caused me to seek out what I was lacking in other ways. So my question is to you now, as Black women and women who are heading up a current generation, what is it like to actually figure out that balance area and trying to figure out how to not do too much in one area that will cause detriment?
mhm.
You want to go, Coach Nat? I know you got to go on the side.
Wow. You get asking great questions, Coach. Right. I'm not. I didn't even expect that. In all honesty, Alonda, go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead. Because something
So
is
for me, I
hard, but
think the most important thing is acknowledging that all three of my children have different personalities, and I know
mhm,
that they all need something different from me. And
mhm,
so, um, asking permission
mhm,
to of myself for one, not coming into motherhood cocky every day, knowing like I'm gonna miss the mark because and asking for forgiveness when I do. And even like I seek other people, like I have a son. I promise you, parenting my son is probably the most scariest thing. And I'm not even a person that scares easily just because of the climate of the world in which I'm raising my son in. I'm raising him alone, making sure that I'm giving him everything. But I also realized that all of my children are called by God, right? And so I have a spiritual obligation to raise them, and I have a natural obligation to raise
mhm,
them.
mhm,
And so I consult my father a lot. Like, and then I also go back and I realize that I have to give them what they need from me. And so how I find the balance, I don't always get it right, but I think that when I focus on their personalities and what they need, and realize that they don't belong to me, that they're God's first. And I want to honor them as people and not just my children. And I think that
mhm.
one thing that I realized is that our grandparent, like my grandmother, was the second generation away from being slaves. Like her mother's mother was a slave.
Right.
So a lot of the way that they did things was coming out of that trauma, right? And so a lot of those things, like yeah, we survived it, but they didn't necessarily work. And so
Mhm,
just giving myself permission to think differently every day and go back and be like, you know what? I ain't had that right the other day. And so now I gotta be humble and realize that this is not just my child, but this is a child of God. This is a person. This is a being. And I think about who they will be and not, I don't get caught up in the moment, right?
right.
Because I think of my son not as my little boy. I think of the fact that one day I'm going to release him and he's going to be somebody's husband someday. I think that he's going to be somebody's father someday. And I think of my children like that every single day, in every single moment, in every single way that I raised them. And I think that's what our parents didn't have it right. They didn't think about us after we leave their care, because even now, still now, they parent us like we're still the kids that live in their house, and they don't release us to be adults. So every day I release them to be the adults in my mind that I know they will be. So even as a mother, as a Black woman, I have to dial back my personality, because I'm like, ooh, I would not want my son to be with a woman that speaks to him that way. So I have to come back and be like, I gotta mind my mouth, because he's gonna mirror what he's incubated in. And so I have to constantly think about that in my consonants every day and everything that I do in my being. And I feel
Mhm.
like that's how I keep the right balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and so in that balance, and we're gonna get ready to close out now because it's 7:30. I know Matt has to get ready to go. If you want to send a message so we can get our fearless leader back in here. Um, my final question is, why you? That's it.
Why us? Why have we made it? Why are
Yeah.
we? Wow. Well, I would say for all of the things we're talking about, because even Alonda, as you just said, parents maybe, generationally didn't release their children to do. But I also still think, and even as we're talking about it as Black women, I mean, because that's our point of reference, that's who raised us. But
Mhm.
one good thing about seeing us as women, period, being able to work with different women from all kinds of backgrounds. And I actually just said this to somebody yesterday. Some women of different, we were all from Black, white, different countries and everything. Being women is not easy. And sometimes we'll have all these segments that we're Black, we're white, we're that. But sometimes there's these situations where we're just women. And one thing that I would say about that is when I think we all striving to get it right, and then just being mothers and that instinct. It's the most basic instinct, hopefully, for most women. So you have to try to become the person. You have to, if you did not have the person in your life to give you what you needed, all you can do is now take that step in that journey to
Mhm.
be able to become that for this next generation, your children, everyone. And that's, what you didn't have, you start all over. Coach Yolanda, like you said, sometimes you have to dial back, apologize, all those things that you have to do. But yes, we're raising a generation of women, of boys and girls, teenagers, youth, that they just need that foundation. So we just have to start, maybe in a way, even becoming the people we want them to be. So we actually, when you say about balance, we have to stop ever so often and really try to dial back. So we're talking about this healing time in a way. We've all kind of gotten a chance these last few years to just dial back, and just hopefully we're seeking that out as parents and professionals, teachers, mentors. We're the village. Even I use as an example, if I came to one of your houses right now, you're expecting me to act a certain way in front of your children,
Mm-hmm.
nothing less. So that example is, if you're not, literally cussing and fussing in your household, bringing people around your children that are, being a part of that village, that's important. So sometimes just that balance is not just for the kids, it is for us. So it's a daily thing you have to do every day. So I think you just have to stop and listen, pray, and be ready to become better, so that, yeah, we are releasing our children to be good wives, good husbands, good parents themselves, hopefully.
That's all right. That's good
Yeah.
to hear, and it's good to know. I'm just so appreciative of. And this is again the first week, so we're gonna dive a little deeper in it as it goes throughout the month. But it's just great to know and see that the women in this world, excuse me,
Mhm.
currently have the understanding of balance, understanding that it ain't a perfect science, and it wasn't a perfect science for them when they were growing up. But you have to make the choice to either be the inspiration or to be the problem. You know,
I feel like, why me? Because I feel like this is the first greatest assignment God has ever given me, that I didn't orchestrate this myself, right?
mhm,
Like he specifically chose Drew, Davin, and Dorian to be my assignment. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we came up with the cute names, but he crafted them. You know what I'm saying? And he knew that how he crafted me specifically, that he could trust me with these three assignments.
Yes.
So I don't take that light at all. Like I think like parenthood would be, that is my greatest achievement. That's the only thing that I've set out to do, um that I care about in the end. Like everything else is like, okay, I didn't do that well, but that's the one thing that I can't go up there on judgment day and be like, I'm gonna feel bad when that's playing out across the little screen, and he like, and this is the account for what you have done. That's the only thing that I can't really blame on any other variable but me.
That's right.
that's awesome, and that's
Amen.
good to hear because that's the facts. Is
Amen.
the only you're born alone and you're judged alone.
That's right.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
will say that for y'all, I would just bid everybody adieu. Thank y'all for tuning in this week. You are much appreciated, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week. We're gonna talk more about the inspirational, influential women in society. See
Yeah.
y'all next week. Love y'all.
Peace.
Good night.